Loader 2-0, good copy. Cluster strike.
The Chosen of the Gods, Ushabti Greatbow's Regiment of Renown. Very strong unit for the Tomb Kings. I've talked about Ushabti Greatbows previously. They're going to be already unleashing some volleys here, so let's get to the builds. I'll come back to the Chosen of the Gods and their special abilities in just a second, but for this Tomb Kings build here, we've got High Queen Khalida, Lich Priest of Death, Bone Giant, some Screaming Meme Catapults to melee Ushabti. The Chosen of the Gods, whole smattering of skeletons, including a couple of skeleton horse archers against the Beastmen, led by Malagor the Dark Omen. We've got Ungor Raiders, Razorgore Herds, Ungor Herds, Gore Herds, Centaurs with throwing axes, Korok's Man Rippers as well. So here, Chosen of the Gods are going to be targeting straight off the bat the Centaurs with throwing axes, and that is the correct call here. Centaurs with throwing axes, very strong armor-piercing missile unit, but they can, if they lose too many models, they won't have enough DPS to finish a game, or, you know, finish off, especially healing armored single entities. No healing for the Tomb Kings here, but Chosen of the Gods, what do they offer over your standard Ushabti Greatbows? Well, they've got this kind of scatter shot, which will compare them to a base Ushabti after the battle's over. I don't really understand how this is reflected in terms of stats, and I was trying to do some testing to figure out 100% exactly how it works, and I still can't quite figure it out. So you'll see the shots kind of turn into these little, like, cluster bombs, basically, right? Cluster shots, and the individual projectiles of the cluster shot, like, I'm just not really sure if they all individually deal the missile damage of the Ushabti Greatbows listed in their stats. That is pretty insane. As it is right now, melee engagement, kind of a little bit of a trade. I mean, the Ushabti are doing fairly well. Mostly skeletons are getting run over by the Beastmen, as you would expect. But some nice work being done here. The Chosen of the Gods continuing to just stay focused on these Centaurs with throwing axes, while the Korok's Man Rippers get worked down by the Screaming Memes. The defense of this missile pocket here, though, is quickly crumbling. Some nice Vile Tides from Malagor there. Nice Bone Giant shots as well, doing great damage to the Centaurs with throwing axes. Chosen of the Gods trying to stop up these Ungors from getting back into the Screaming Skulls, but they're able to block some of the models. Might be able to keep the Screaming Skulls online for at least a little bit of time here, but it's definitely not going to be a great situation for that artillery piece. Ushabti summons getting pulled up in the center, though, and lots of terror. Nice upgraded Doom and Darkness here to help terrify away a big old pocket of Beastmen units that are all relatively healthy. That's strong. That spell's super strong in this matchup. You can see that route does put the Tomb Kings ahead on the balance of power, but Beastmen certainly not out of this yet. As these units start to come back from route, it will be a little bit of an issue. The Centaurs are throwing axes right now, haven't really had a good lane to get through and start firing at the Chosen of the Gods, but if they could, it'd definitely be a great target. Bone Giant's definitely going to be a little bit more of a priority, but yeah, the summoned Ushabti now pressuring. Again, just not allowing these Centaurs with throwing axes to operate freely. It's very key here. Using all these different assets to try and pressure them, and even just forcing them to move. Obviously, dealing damage is great as well, but even just forcing them to move may be enough in the late game here. Skeleton Horse Archers, just kind of great positioning, able to shoot at a variety of targets and just kind of occupy that space there. Khalida getting worn down. Not doing great, but nice Spirit Leech on Malagor the Dark Omen. Looks like she may peel up and around, try and get a charge on him, but very quickly going to get surrounded as the Tomb King's army's mostly gone. Great job by the Chosen of the Gods here, though. They do get set briefly. Ungors are trying their best to interrupt them from firing, but it does look like they'll be able to get some shots off. We'll see. The Mighty Scroll of Incantations for the Lich Priest here. Basically, any unit that it hits will give you additional Winds of Magic recharge, and it did hit a big old pocket of units there. But now the Centaurs are throwing axes, have some free lanes. Another brutal Doom and Darkness, though, just routes a huge pocket of these mobile Beastmen units. Razorgore Herds are getting pretty low at this point. Skeleton Horseman Archers doing a great job. Again, excellent positioning here, just occupying this space, firing in at some high-value targets there. Chosen of the Gods continuing to use up some of their ammunition, but now pulling up point blank, these Centaurs with throwing axes will be able to do quite a bit of damage. This is not a great situation for the Chosen of the Gods, but Yeah, quickly getting worn down, but they've done a considerable amount of damage already in the time they've been able to just sit and fire. Definitely paying for themselves even as we speak. Pretty good stuff from them. The question is, will the Tomb Kings be able to pull out the victory? Having the Bone Giant available still for Terror is great. Summon Ushabti are, like, literally crumbling right now. Or... that's interesting. No, this is not the Summoned Ushabti. Okay, they're just the regular old Ushabti. Still here. I was going to say that's a little odd. They should definitely be gone by now, but yeah, still here. Skeleton Horseman Archers charging through. The Chosen of the Gods are gone, but they did allow those Skeleton Horseman Archers on the other side to do a little bit more work. Now moving in with that fear on the Centaurs throwing axes. Do not have immune to psychology from their little Beastman Frenzy thing, so that fear will have a little bit of an effect, and just the number model count difference here, even though the Centaurs are largely still fresh, these Skeleton Horseman Archers also active here, fading here, so definitely a great vigor situation. Another Doom and Darkness does lead to Razorgors getting terrified away, and the balance power really not looking great for Tomb Kings right now, but at the same time, as long as this Tomb Giant, the Bone Giant rather, stays alive, it should be just fine. Oh, point blank blast into Malagor's face. That is going to be very, very painful. And the more damage Malagor takes here, the more the balance of power will kind of flip. Death Lich Priest also being alive, very critical. Could potentially get like one more Spirit Leech perhaps, utilizing that scroll of mighty incantations. Will it be necessary though? Doesn't really look like it, as Malagor gets hit by another shot. I'm not really sure why the balance power is still so heavily in the Beastman's favor at this point, but yeah, as we can see from the reality on the battlefield, it is pretty much hopeless. I mean, I guess Korok's Man Rippers it's giving a lot of credence to, but Malagor taking another shot right there, but that was actually the Bone Giant's last shot. He does come back from route briefly, but at this point, all these Beastman units are so tattered, you're going to get pretty easily terrified away by the Bone Giant, especially with the Skeleton Horseman Archers. They're able to stay alive, provide some rear charge penalties perhaps. So we'll fast forward a little bit through this late game cleanup as the Bone Giant slowly moves into combat here. The Skeleton Horse Archers do get pulled away somewhat, but a nice Doom and Darkness once again on the most high value target here. Don't have the Winds of Magic to overcast it, but just get rid of the Korok's Man Rippers. The Centaurs will still do some damage on the charge though. You can see the Bone Giant doesn't take too much right there, but a few hits are getting through. These Goreherds especially are doing just fine in terms of leadership, at least for the time being, but as soon as Malagor shatters, these other units get terrified, they get isolated on their lonesome, and that's pretty much it. A handful more Beastman units might come back, but at this point, the Terror will definitely win the day. So, very fun battle. Super fun battle. Very close at the end of the day. Beastmen definitely don't go easily into this good night, but eventually they do go. And a big thanks to Quataro for sending that one in. I believe this is a Deadly Bunnies. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, Deadly Bunnies, but awesome battle. It's, you know, Beastmen are in an interesting place right now. I've been seeing a lot more people playing them, I guess getting hyped for the DLC. Tomb Kings are probably the weakest of the undead right now. It's hard to say. Beastmen are still weak against undead as a general rule, though, and especially when you take advantage of the leadership effects in this matchup. You know, having this Screaming Skull is one. Plus, the Lich Priest with the Doom and Darkness is obviously very key in the late game. But Chosen of the Gods do pay for themselves. I think they're, what, 1,300? We'll check on that in just a minute. Bone Giant also does some really nice damage value as well. Ushabti, you're just kind of here. Skeleton Horseman Archers, awesome in this matchup if they can stay alive. On the Beastman side, Ungors, some of them actually, the one that got on the Catapult got really nice value. Goreherds, they trade okay. I mean, they definitely blend skeletons, no problem. They have enough DPS to trade into some armored large units, but the Centaurs throwing axes, 2 of them paid out. 2 of them did not, though, and the damage, you know, kind of throughout the course of the battle from the Bone Giant and the Chosen of the Gods definitely contributed to that fact. Pretty decent damage on the Razorgore herds as well. But anyway, let's talk a little bit more about Chosen of the Gods in relation to the base Ushabti. So the thing that's kind of strange here is, again, I don't know exactly how the scatter shot, if it's represented correctly on the unit card or exactly how it works, but if we have a look here, you can see that the regular Ushabti Greatbow doesn't have an explosion profile, right? It's just a straight missile punch to the face. Whereas this explosion profile here, It doesn't give like an explosion radius or anything like that. It does give the base missile damage, but then, again, I don't know exactly how this explosion is calculated. If it's like, you know, just the area where all the projectiles land, if each projectile individually imparts that, you know, 52 base explosive and 26 armor piercing explosive damage. I was trying to figure out exactly how that works, but I still, after like some testing, like maybe a couple hours worth of testing, I'm still not 100% sure. But essentially, it just does a scatter shot. Seems to be, if we're going by what's on paper here, actually better against non-armored infantry. We'll still do some good damage to armored infantry. Using this against single entities, if all of the kind of explosion scatter shots hit, it will do pretty significant damage, but generally the regular shots are more cost-effective going for armored large targets. Does have shield breaker as well to reduce missile block chance. Not super important for Tomb Kings in general, given that, you know, your quote-unquote small arms are really only bows, and they're decent enough bows. They're not terrible, but they're just kind of here, to be honest. I mean, the horse archers in particular, 3 AP per shot already is decent, but it's not like they're wildly high DPS anyway, so, I mean, it's okay to get that missile parry reduction, not super critical. But it's certainly nice. The main thing, though, is just the extra damage from the scatter shot. In some situations is pretty impactful. Not to mention, of course, increased refire rate and stats for a 200-point discount, which in and of itself is quite nice, right? So we can see the missile damage actually technically goes down, even with the reload rate buffs. The reload time here, 7.7 seconds. Should be the same here, actually 8.1 seconds. Interesting, so even considerably more reduced reload time, but lower damage overall. It's kind of spread over an area. Gives it a little bit more, again, anti-infantry, anti-blob potential. It can still be very good against certain single entities, but generally these other ones are more cost-effective. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Again, thanks for sending that one in for Quitaro. If you guys want to send in replays, be sure to drop them on the Discord. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, we'll see you next time.